Tara, welcome back to the Mea Culpa podcast. There's so much going on today, the chaos in our political environment. Hour goes by quick, so I'm just going to jump right into it. You know, as we're talking every day now about yet another government shutdown, because we don't have enough going on in our lives, they're talking about another government shutdown. I want to remind you, and I want to remind my listeners, that the last government shutdown in 2018, 2019 cost this country, it cost our economy over $11 billion. Now, given the current economic fragility, how do you think that a shutdown in 2025 will disproportionately affect federal workers, as well as, and specifically, federal workers in swing states like Pennsylvania and Michigan, who incidentally voted for Trump?
Well, it's always good to be back with you, Michael. The amount of chaos that we are in the middle of right now is unprecedented. We've never seen anything like this in this country before. And although many of us, you included, warned vociferously, passionately, repeatedly that this would happen if we gave Donald Trump power again, so many people chose to put their heads in their sand or put their heads up their own asses or whatever to not believe that this is what would happen. And here we are less than 2 months into this, and so many unimaginable things are happening. But shutdowns used to feel like the worst thing ever, right? It was like they are political losers. Everyone used to run around with their hair on fire. We can't have a shutdown. That was like the worst, most chaotic thing ever. Shutdowns now look like a federal holiday at this point. It is, the things are so catastrophic that are happening right now in our government, thanks to Elon Musk and Donald Trump and what Doge is doing, and the absolute decapitation of our federal agencies and frankly of our democracy for a number of reasons, that a federal shutdown now is really, really bad. And it's just going to just compound the chaos, because we're already seeing hundreds of thousands of people losing their jobs. This is going to throw our economy into chaos. People are just starting now to understand kind of the trickle-down effect of what these mass firings in the government are doing. And not only the mass firings, but the disruption in services. We used to make the argument about federal shutdowns as being a disruption in services, which was true, because people don't realize how much your everyday life is dependent on the government. You don't realize it because when it works and you don't know. But when it doesn't work and when you don't have it anymore, then you're like, oh, I didn't realize that was going to happen. And that's what's about to happen right now. If there's another government shutdown and you add that onto the disruption of services from our VA to our farm bureaus, to the USDA, to our national parks, to Social Security, to just name it. And you add a shutdown now, people are really, I'm almost hoping that Republicans do mess around and we end up with another shutdown. Because people obviously need to feel a certain amount of discomfort and pain before they wake the hell up and understand what Donald Trump is doing to you. Trump is doing this to you, no one else. Donald Trump and his co-president, Elon Musk, are doing this to you. And no one is safe from it, including MAGAs.
But not if you listen to people like MAGA representative here from New York, Nicole Malliotakis, who's sitting there. Everything is being blamed on the former administration, on Joe Biden. Trump says it, Musk says it, Malliotakis says it. Every member of Congress that is Republican are spewing the same talking points. It's as if, like during the campaigns, they receive talking points memorandum. If you are going to be a surrogate, if you're going to be in the press today, if you're going to be on the news today, these are the buzzwords that they want you to say, and those are the buzzwords that they are saying, including whether we're going to call Elon Musk a shadow president or just some sort of temporary sidekick, which I believe he is. There are proposals that are out there that are being discussed, stupid proposals like $14 billion in cuts to just the IRS alone. What's going to happen when people don't get their refund checks or the processing of their IRS forms, don't take place properly? $20 billion in cuts in climate funding. That's just climate funding alone. There's hundreds of billions, if not $trillion worth of these stupid cuts that they want. Plus, Elon Musk has said to Trump that he needs to cut $2 trillion from our $6.4 trillion budget, our federal budget, in order so that we can actually start to bring the country's deficit down. Do you think, Tara, that these targeted cuts are strategic? You think that they're a strategic move to appease the far-right Freedom Caucus? Or do you think that they will ultimately alienate moderate Republicans and Democrats?
So there's a few layers to that. Well, first of all, of course, all of the Republicans and MAGAs are on the same page because it's a cult, and that's what they do. What are they going to say? They're scared to death. The ones that are not true believers, there's a bunch that are true believers, and that's, all different discussion. Most of them are not true believers. And the ones who understand that this is political kryptonite for them, they're too chicken shit to stand up and say no, because ultimately the power of the purse originates with Congress. What Elon Musk is doing is questionably legal. There are court cases going on right now that are challenging what he's doing. There are processes for this. Some random guy who was not elected, who is not a member of Congress, who has no oversight, a civilian coming in and deciding to, take a chainsaw, to use his own imagery, to our federal workers and our programs where things that have been appropriated by Congress, which is their constitutional responsibility, it's legally dubious and questionably unconstitutional. So the problem here is that it's happening with such at a swift pace that it's difficult to keep up. And frankly, Democrats have not done a great job in pushing back on it.
No.
Actually, they've done a terrible job, and it's very frustrating to watch what's going on. People may know or may not know. I was a Republican for 27 years. I know the tactics, and I saw what Mitch McConnell and Republicans did when they were in the minority and they were the opposition party for years against Barack Obama and the Democrats. There is a playbook for this. I don't want to hear this just roll over and do nothing and let them trip over themselves and, hang themselves. No, not like this. We're not in normal political times. It does not work. And Republicans didn't do that back in 2009, 10, 11, 12, in those years. They did not. They did all kinds of things to make Democrats' lives more difficult and more difficult for them to carry out their agenda. So there's all kinds of things they could be doing that they're not. But maybe we can talk about that later. But of course, they're going to all be on the same page with the talking points because they cannot deviate. Trump has threatened them. Musk has threatened them, and they know this. So they're willing to sell out what they know is right, including selling out their own constituents. They know this is going to hurt their own constituents. Do you know how many red districts have farmers that rely on the SNAP program? How many farmers rely on USAID because we send billions of dollars to our farmers to create, to produce those crops for USAID programs overseas? I mean, people have no idea how damaging all of this actually is to regular folks, but the members of Congress do because they're hearing it. That's what they're seeing at the town halls. That's why they're scared to death to have town halls anymore. That's why the memo went out. Don't have in-person town halls anymore because they don't want the visual of the American people rising up and complaining and going, what the hell are you guys doing?
Right.
So this is all of those things. And the cuts, as we know, that if you were to get rid of every single federal worker and every single federal program, it wouldn't make a dent in the debt. It's not going to make a dent. These are nominal savings. This is a lie that's being sold to these people to justify the pain that's being inflicted on them. And if you
Tara,
repeat something over and over again, enough people believe it. But until you start to feel it in your everyday life. Right, correct.
Sure, that's the Stalin approach. The more that you repeat the lie, the more the lie becomes the truth. But the one thing that people are also, and it's, again, you're not wrong, it is the Democrats' fault. And my hope, though I'm not confident that Ken Martin, the new head of the DNC, is going to have a playbook any different than Jamie Harrison's, which I would give him maybe a D in terms of overall messaging, maybe at best a D. Let me be very clear about something. They have no fucking clue how to fight somebody like Donald Trump. I've said this 1,000 times.
You and I
They
talk
have
about
no
this all the
idea
time.
what it takes in order to fight him properly. All right. And that the problem is you cannot try to make everything about him and make him into the devil of every single thing. Every bad thing that somebody writes about does not have to be investigated and reported and reported again. Problem is, Democrats don't stay on singular message long enough for it to soak into the American's head.
Correct.
With that in mind, the House, the GOP, they have a razor thin majority there. Do you see any scenario that you and I can advise somebody like Democratic DNC chair Ken Martin to leverage what will be a shutdown? There's no doubt in my mind. I believe
I think so
that
too.
there will be a shutdown. Even the threat of a shutdown. How do we leverage that to gain political momentum as we start looking into the 2026 midterms? Because if those midterms go the wrong way, we're really sunk.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Democrats need to learn how to do simple messages on big concept issues that the average American understands. That's what Republicans do. They repeat things in bumper sticker terms. They repeat them over and over again in terms that people understand. It's almost like you're talking to sixth graders. I'm not trying to insult the American people, but the average American reads at a sixth grade level. So that's how you have to present these things. You cannot go into deep policy discussions and about this policy, that policy, and chasing like whack-a-mole policy issues that the Trump administration keeps putting out there and thinking that anyone's going to absorb this and understand why it matters to them. That's part of the problem. For Republicans, they kept it very simple. Immigration bad, transgenders bad, Donald Trump is for you. The end. That is their entire agenda.
You know, Tara, interestingly enough, I've said literally for the longest time now, Donald Trump speaks in bumper stickers. Generally, they are 3-word concepts. Let's just go back and think about it. When he was fighting with Hillary Clinton, lock her up, 3 words. Build the wall. Right? In order to deal with immigration, which is a policy that nobody, like the IRS manual, nobody can fully understand how to actually correct immigration. Mass deportation now. He's improved on it. Gasoline and groceries. He has taken the 3-word scenario and
drill, baby, drill.
Drill, baby, drill. There's another one. All right. We could build an entire book based upon Donald Trump 3-word bumper stickers that resonate with the American people. And for the reason that you say, especially his MAGA supporters, they're not interested in trying to understand the in-depth Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, when he was even capable of providing enough information regarding policy. People like, get to the fucking 3-word point. That's right. All they want. Donald Trump, who I have always said is the master of branding, potentially his superpower that nobody else can even marvel. You need to fight fire with fire. You can't talk about 20 different things while their messaging is only on one. I mean, think about with Kamala Harris. She's talking about one thing. Mark Cuban is talking about another. You had Norm Eisen's talking about the law. You have this one's talking about, immigration. You have this one talking about farmers and so on. And everybody's like, whoa, wait. It's the Democrats that are discombobulated, that they're all over the fucking map, whereas the Republicans drill, baby, drill, or mass deportation now. But he beat the shit singularly beat the shit out of the entire Democratic Party with 3 words again: gasoline and groceries. The three-word bumper sticker that everybody was able to understand and relate to as you're filling up your car with gas, or you're at the grocery at checkout. Everybody could understand it. And he and only he can fix the situation for you.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I don't know why they don't start discussing how Donald Trump's cuts kill. Trump's cuts kill. Musk's, stuff like that. Like, Trump destroys. I don't know. We can come up with different things, but you've got to be in your face, unapologetically provocative and honest, because it's true. People are going to lose their lives. They're going to lose their benefits. They're losing their livelihoods because of Donald Trump. Trump did this. And you can go down the list of what those thises are. Musk did this. Trump allowed it. Like, this is Trump betrays veterans. Like, Trump betrays farmers. Like, there are so many things that they could do if they just stayed on message and if everybody wasn't competing with each other's agendas. And frankly, there's kind of an old guard, new guard fight going on between the Democratic Party on how to communicate these things. And a lot of times you're seeing old tactics being used by the Democrats that don't fit the moment. Those tactics don't work anymore. You can't use the tactics of yesteryear.
Yeah, it's like trying to read this in hieroglyphics. That's right. How old it is. It's old. It doesn't work. And you know what? I want to talk about, because you just brought something up. That's, by the way, it's a great 3-word. Trump betrays veterans, because I know that you have a multitude of veterans in your family. All right. And I know that you really, as I do, I am beyond insulted. I'm grossed out by the treatment of those people who have sacrificed, right? And did this to preserve our democratic republic, our constitution, our ideals. You and I would never be here talking to one another on this platform if, in fact, it wasn't for the bravery of our veterans, those that have unfortunately perished and those that are alive with conditions, whether they are actual physical conditions because of their service or emotional, like PTSD. In fact, your project, the Seneca Project, which you are a co-founder of, is as nauseated by the fact that they're talking about cutting 80,000 jobs in the VA, leaving veterans out in the cold without the ability to seek medical attention, receive benefits, and so on. In fact, you did, via the Seneca Project, you put out a great ad. I'm actually going to play it. I'm going to play it for everybody so that they can see it when this ultimately is on YouTube, but they'll be able to hear it as well if wherever they listen to their podcasts.
The golden age of America has only just begun.
Veterans will suffer.
It will be like nothing that has ever been seen before.
Friday night, Pentagon purge.
President Trump has just fired the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Truly unprecedented.
And we take good care of our veterans.
Veterans are being fired.
We've been betrayed.
Absolutely betrayed.
A slap in the face.
I feel let down.
I feel like I'm not good enough.
We love our veterans.
The president referred to them as suckers and losers.
We're not losers. We're not suckers.
We care about veterans, but at the same time, we have a fiscal responsibility to use taxpayer dollars to pay people that actually work.
We don't deserve to be treated like this.
Perhaps they're not fit to have a job at this moment.
These people are brave, patriotic Americans that go to work every single day.
We have hundreds of thousands of federal workers who have not been showing up to work.
I put myself in harm's way for the country.
We put our whole entire life into public service, and all of a sudden, one man comes in and throws it all away.
Elon Musk, who is in the gallery tonight.
If Elon Musk does what he wants to do, between 200 to 300,000 veterans are fired this year.
Any federal bureaucrat who resists this change will be removed from office immediately.
Veterans make up 30% of the federal workforce.
Combat veterans,
It's your neighbors. We want to work hard. We want to help people.
These warriors who shed their blood.
The Department of Veterans Affairs dismissing more than 1,400 probationary workers.
Can you guarantee that veterans' benefits and care will not be affected by these cuts?
No, I can't guarantee anything.
I just feel like I've just been swept up in a dustpan and thrown out. I voted for Trump. A lot of us didn't deserve this.
But I want to ask you on behalf of these veterans, the veterans in your family and the folks that you know, what is the sentiment from these veterans, especially those who voted and campaigned for him in 2024?
Thank you for playing that, Michael. And we produced that ad in partnership with Marcus Flowers' PAC Hold the Line. And for those who don't know, Marcus Flowers ran for Congress against Marjorie Taylor Greene a couple cycles ago and decided to start a PAC to help elect a new generation of Democrats. And he's a military veteran. He spent 20 years in the military and working for the Department of Defense. So this was something that we had an idea and we decided to partner with him on it because it was so important for us to get that out. You know, we are a content producing organization at the Seneca Project. And, you know, we are women led, run by women, and we're tough broads and we know how to message. And we wanted to combine that because, frankly, Democrats aren't doing it. No Democratic organizations are putting out counter messaging to go on offense against Trump and what Musk are doing. We did the same thing with Elon. We have an ad out called Welfare Queen. People need to know Elon Musk isn't the genius you think he is. Matter of fact, he's wealthy because of our tax dollars subsidizing Tesla and SpaceX. Okay, the guy's not a genius. He never invented anything. And he's one of the biggest welfare queens. He's got the nerve to go after our government and making cuts on things when he is benefiting $8 million a day personally, $8 million a day personally from the government contracts that our tax dollars pay him versus the average Social Security recipient who gets $65 a day. And so all of these things, these messages, people need to know, particularly MAGA. The veteran issue, when we saw that they were actually coming for veterans. Now, we always warned that Trump doesn't really give a damn about his own people. He doesn't. It's always been about him and his own corruption. And the MAGAs who voted for him thought that he was going to go and target the libs. He's going to own the libs. He's going to get the brown menace people out here, all the criminals. He's going to screw over all those, progressive lefties. And then they went, holy shit, wait, what do you mean my veteran husband just lost his job working at the FAA? Or wait, my veterans benefits at the VA down the street that program's gone. Wait, they're going, what? And in our ad, as you heard, people were saying they feel betrayed. They shouldn't be treated like this. They've given their lives in service to this country. I was a Trump voter. I feel thrown away. They're starting to wake up a little bit. Now, again, people only change when they feel enough pain to do it. And it's a shame that they have to go through this. Right. Whatever it is, whether it's their livelihoods because they're losing their jobs or whether it's their benefits that they're losing. I mean, the VA's had problems for years. And is it a bloated bureaucracy? Sure. But you don't go and cut 80,000 jobs and the services that go along with it. There are ways to go and do this strategically that doesn't just wipe out tens of thousands of people's livelihoods and services. I mean, we're a country that has 22 veteran suicides a day. And you're going to, what? You're cutting the program with the people who answer that suicide hotline or provide those mental health services or the nurses that provide those services for our veterans or the people who process those disability checks. What the fuck are we doing? This is insanity. And veterans are the most popular, well-loved demographic in America. CNN,
and they should be. And
yes,
they should
and
be,
CNN did a survey on this. Harry Enton, he does all the numbers on CNN. He showed that veterans are more popular. They have a higher approval rating than George Washington, Lincoln, or Mother Teresa. And this is who's paying the price. 30% of our federal workforce is made up of veterans. So
wait, hold on, not Mother Teresa.
Yes,
right?
Mother Teresa. I was like, wow, okay. I mean, we all love our vets,
right? But they're not the only group. that
No, we're
voted
just using them as
in
an
large
example.
part, sure,
Because
in
they are
large parts.
disproportionately being hurt, and a lot of them support Donald Trump.
This episode of Mea Culpa is brought to you by Graza, my new favorite olive oil. It's fresh, it's never blended, and it comes from a single type of olive, the Picual, straight out of Jaén, Spain, where over half of the world's olive oil is produced. So why Graza? Single origin goodness, that's why. Only one olive from one region. No mysterious blends. That means a traceable, a fresher product without mixing in any low grade or unknown oils. It's super fun. It has squeeze and spray bottles too. So there's no more messy tins or drippy spouts. Just aim, squeeze, and go. I mean, there are 3 types for any task that you have. One, they have something called frizzle. That's their newest, with a higher 490-degree Fahrenheit smoke point, which is perfect for frying, crisping, or grilling. Sizzle at 410 degrees Fahrenheit, which is an everyday cooking oil for roasting, marinating, and sauteing. Then they have something called drizzle, which is a bold, a punchy finishing oil that you sprinkle on your salads, you dip your bread in, or even you top it off on your ice cream. Look, let me be clear. My daughter is the actual chef in the house, and she uses olive oil on everything from pastas to preparing steak. I mean, not only does this cook well, it smells delicious. Plus, as a healthy eater, Graza's extra virgin oils, they are loaded with those heart and brain friendly polyphenols. So it's good for you. Look, so here's what you get. You get 10% off your first order on Graza's site. But I personally suggest grabbing the trio. That's all the 3 squeezy bottles, the sizzle, the frizzle, and the drizzle, so that you're set for every style of cooking. So head right now to graza.co and use code Cohen to get 10% off of Trio, which includes, again, sizzle, frizzle, and drizzle, and get to cooking your next chef-quality meal. Again, head to Graza, GRAZA.co, and use code Cohen, COHEN, to get 10% off the Trio. And I love saying it, sizzle, frizzle, and drizzle. So get cooking now.
Those are his people. He likes to wrap himself in the flag, and he likes to hold up veterans as props, the military as props, but he doesn't give a damn about them. He stole from a veterans charity. You know this, Michael.
Nah,
the guy is the worst.
He really didn't steal from that charity.
Well,
look, this is one of the problems too, is he didn't. He wasn't 100% sincere about even doing it. But he didn't steal any money from it. And we don't have to, again, it goes back to the point I was making before. Not every single thing that has come out about him is actually true. And the problem with that is when Democrats use it, what it does is it adds to his claims of being a victim for everything. Look, I'd be the first one to say if there was money that was missing from a VA charity, or when Eric Trump, for example, had the charity for St. Jude Children's Hospital for children with cancer, they didn't take any money from it. And not everything that Trump does has to be deemed, grotesque and theft. It's just not true. But the point
regardless,
I'm trying to
the
make
point is that he doesn't care, and he manipulated veterans with that money and all of that, whether they took money or not. However, it wasn't used for the purpose it was supposed to be and the way he claimed it would be, because again, it was a political pawn. Same thing with the going after John McCain and the military funeral, and the flag, didn't want the flags to be lowered, and they had to they had to cover up the USS McCain because he didn't want to see anything. It's just the suckers and losers, right? The suckers and losers comments. Why can't my generals be like Hitler? Like, we already know how he really feels about people who give themselves to service something bigger than them, which he doesn't understand and doesn't care and thinks is asinine. So the fact that so many military people think that he's their champion is again an example of how the propaganda and the disinformation and his ability to market is genius, because they're literally being gaslit into believing that this guy who looks at them and thinks that they're suckers and losers is their champion. That is one of the books are going to be written on this. the success of Donald Trump is probably one of the biggest successful propaganda operations we've ever seen in the history of our country, ever, if not the world. It is really remarkable because so many people have been gaslit. I was at brunch this weekend with my husband at one of our local vineyards because I live in Northern Virginia and we have a lot of great vineyards. And we met this couple that was sitting next to us, and they started talking to us because they saw my hat, and we started talking about wine first, and then the conversation shifted toward the end about Trump and what's happening in the government. And I made a comment about, well, that you're not going to get those benefits soon because he's military. And I said, well, don't be surprised when, your military contract, because he's retired military, now he works for DHS. I said, don't be surprised when you lose your job too, because you're not safe either. No one is safe from this. And he was like, well, that's not true. And I said, listen, Elon Musk, he's not even from here. Okay. He descended from Nazis who came from Canada and decided to camp in South Africa because they felt more comfortable there under apartheid. I said, the guy does not respect our democracy, and he doesn't give two shits about you or anybody else. And he's indiscriminately been given carte blanche to just cut people's jobs for his own benefit. And he goes, oh, well, Elon's, he's an American citizen. He kept trying to rationalize this. And I said,
and you know what I say to them?
He's coming
you know
for
what
you
I say?
too.
You know what I say? FAFO. That's all I know. Like, huh?
Yes.
I'm like,
Yeah.
fuck around, find out. And you're going to see it. In fact, I did a story very similar to this on my Substack where I called it Truth Optional, Gaslighting Mandatory.
Yes.
Right?
That's
Because
so
that's
true.
what, I mean, it pisses. But the point I was
But he
really
was
trying to bring up.
in denial about it. And then interestingly, his wife, she kind of like turned to me and she made a gesture and she was like, I didn't vote for him. And I was like, of course you did.
Yeah.
She goes, she's like, I don't agree with him. But she had to whisper it. So I thought to myself, well, at least her vote canceled out his, let's hope, during the election. But it was interesting how he just kept saying, oh, no. I'm like, yeah, you're not safe either,
and
buddy.
he's not part of the only group that's doing exactly this. Okay.
No.
So you have a whole slew of Hispanic, Latino, Venezuelans, and so on. ICE right now, they have a daily arrest quota of 1,875 people per day. Now, that would, by the way, require a 400% increase over their current arrest rates. Now, I want to ask you this because there's obviously a ton of logistical challenges, not to mention legal hurdles that they have to overcome with. You think that this is a realistic goal, or do you think it was just simply a political talking point that, again, they get on a daily basis? Keep reminding the American people that we are all over these illegal immigrants, that we are deporting them at record-breaking, at earth-shattering numbers.
The thing about this whole thing is that it's all political horseshit. Donald Trump's entire political career and his defining issue has been going after immigrants. And they have really ridden that unfortunate sentiment again. Like they demagogue the issue because yes, we have an illegal immigration problem. We do have a problem with border security. This has been a problem for 30 years. It didn't just happen yesterday. It's not Joe Biden's fault. It's not, guess what? There were illegal immigrants pouring over this border too when Donald Trump was president. So this has been an issue back since amnesty happened under Reagan. Okay. When Reagan decided to do the amnesty bill, he was promised enforcement. And then the enforcement never happened. And then you had interests on both sides. Some folks like Republicans who own businesses and farmers who like the cheap labor. They were like, well, maybe it's not so bad. And then you have Democrats that thought, okay, well, we have new constituents here potentially. We'll let them over here. We'll give them amnesty and then they can vote for us. And then we've got more folks on our side. There were competing interests here that allowed our immigration system to get completely out of control. Now, Now, Republicans, when I worked on the Hill, I worked on this issue. I was a Hill staffer for 7 years. I am a border hawk. I understand border security very well. I advocated for 2 Border Patrol agents who were unjustly prosecuted and sent to federal prison for shooting an illegal alien drug smuggler who had $1 million worth of drugs in the back of a van that ended up going to prison because of a paperwork mix-up that was crazy, 10 and 11 years. I advocated for a presidential pardon of them. We were successful in a commutation. Like, I'm no wallflower when it comes to immigration. However, it's multifaceted, and they are no longer good faith actors trying to solve the problem. They want to continue to exploit this issue here at the expense of like human lives. You know, these are real human beings that are coming over here. Are there gang members and drug smugglers? Yes, there are, but they're not making that distinction. Where I live in Northern Virginia, there was a story just last week about a Hispanic man that was pulled over by ICE, that they got the wrong identity and they had him handcuffed. They didn't believe that he was a naturalized citizen until he showed him his real ID that had a little symbol on it that you cannot fake these IDs, these documents. So at that point, they finally were like, oh, and they had to let him go. But he had 2 workers with him who they ended up taking into custody. We don't know their status. And he said, he got interviewed by the local DC NBC station, and he said, I was a Trump supporter. I supported Donald Trump because I thought that he was going to go after the criminals. I didn't think that meant he was going to target people like me. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. What did you think he was going to do? You really think that he cares about the... Exactly. And I'm like, cognitive dissonance is a hell of a drug. A lot of people vote against their own interests all the time. And a lot of people of color, women, and Hispanics who voted for Donald Trump thinking that, oh no, it's not going to impact us. They're in the finding out phase.
40%, I think, is around the number of Hispanics that voted for Donald Trump. All right. Yeah. Now, I remember when I first started the National Diversity Coalition, I started because his entire base, his rallies were all white.
Oh, I remember.
It looked like a Klan meeting. And now to have 40% Hispanic, and then you start to see buyer's remorse, like this gentleman that got pulled over there and detained. He's not the only one. You see every day countless individuals who are being either arrested, placed with ankle monitors, or already deported to like Panama, where they're placed in a Panamanian internment camp that's in the middle of the Panamanian jungle, right? I mean, these are not normal times that we are living.
No.
However,
or they're getting sent to Gitmo, right? They're getting sent to Gitmo, which once again is not efficient. Do you know how much money it costs to do this? It is, they decided, I mean, we're talking about trying to save waste, fraud, and abuse. Sending these people to Gitmo is 10 times the cost of detaining them here and then deporting them. These planes, these military flights that they're using to repatriate them to their old countries costs 5 times what it would cost to send them back properly. Like, this is insane, but they're using it because it is a issue that they want to demagogue. And so it doesn't matter whether it's actually efficient or not. Right. That's all it is. That's all it is. And it's ruining people's lives.
It sure is. Now, it's going to ruin all of our lives, especially when you go into the grocery store to buy a basket of blueberries or strawberries, and you're paying $25 because these are jobs that Americans do not want.
And it hurts the farmers because they lose their crops. Does. Same thing with the tariffs. Like, that's another area that I don't understand why Democrats do not lean into more. It's how devastating this is to the breadbasket of America, our farmers. And, you know, whether it's the tariffs with their soybeans and their wheat and their, you know, pork, all of these things, we have an international global marketplace. They rely on our relationships with other countries and trade. And the tariffs devastated them last time. The only thing that kept a lot of farmers afloat was the fact that Trump's government subsidized them. They had to pay with taxpayer money to make up for the losses that they were losing because of the tariffs on with China and other places that were misplaced. Like, this is so ass backwards, but people are not communicating this. A tariff is a tax on the American taxpayer. It's a tax on us. That's it. Tariffs are a tax on you. That should be a repeated thing over and over and over again, because most people don't know what tariffs are. They've been gaslit into believing that the other country pays it. No, they do not. We do.
Right. Right. If you want to repeat now the ongoing continuous lies that, again, are still coming out of this GOP talking points memo, you see the GOP claiming, along as does our president, that the economy is booming. Economy's doing great. We're doing great. We're just doing it's absolutely great. Right.
It was actually great under Joe Biden.
Right. Here's what we do know. Consumer confidence has fallen since President Trump was inaugurated. All right. That being said, how do you explain this disconnect between obvious, legitimate economic data and the public sentiment as dictated by the GOP and Trump's statements?
Well, a lot of this falls on the mainstream media and how it's reported. There should be screaming headlines and chyrons every single day about the economic dire straits we're heading down. The stock market and their 401ks taking a nosedive like last week when Trump couldn't decide. He did the weeble wobble economic policy of, oh, yes, tariffs, no tariffs, yes, tariffs, no tariffs. Well, which is it? Which is it? You can't make up your mind, Mr. Genius businessman. You can't decide. You don't know what you're doing. Yeah, because he doesn't know what he's doing. The guy bankrupted casinos. I just need, they should keep repeating that. Trump bankrupted casinos. He's bankrupting America. Anyway. So the problem is that it's not covered with the sense of urgency, because the average American, they don't listen to us and news and all of that the way we all do. Your audience is engaged and we are engaged, but a lot of people out there, they just read headlines. It's just quick bits. And if there isn't a collective sense of urgency coming from the people who are our main purveyors of information, they're going to think that it's not a big deal. Egg prices. Why did everybody start paying attention to egg prices? Because it was a story that got repeated over and 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 over. The price of eggs, the price of eggs, the price of eggs, the price, right? And then so people started paying attention. I wasn't really even paying attention to the price of eggs until someone said, the price of eggs have gone up. And I'm like, you know what? Actually, they have. And then it was all about the price of eggs. Now, price of eggs aren't coming down. They're going up 40% potentially this year. And that came from Trump's USDA. Why? Well, we have a bird flu issue. We've had to cull a bunch of chickens because of bird flu. But what is Donald Trump doing to try to bring egg prices down? He's not telling you. That's not Biden's fault. Egg prices were $4 a carton under Biden. What about inflation? What about what Goldman Sachs and the markets are talking about? They're all scared to death because they're worried that we're going to end up in a recession. Donald Trump was asked about this by Maria Bartiromo, of all people. She actually had a tough interview with him in some parts where he couldn't answer it. He just goes back to the sales pitch. He goes back to the BS sales pitch. Oh, no, everything's going to be wonderful. Telling everyone the pain they're feeling now, it's going to be worth it later. Oh, yeah? Okay. Tell that to the people who are now going to be on unemployment, that can't feed their families, that don't get their benefits, where their parents are thrown out of their nursing homes because Medicaid has been cut, all thanks to Donald Trump and Elon Musk and what they're doing every day.
They can't pay for their insulin. They can't pay for anything. Now, again, I keep saying it. I'm going to say it again. Fuck around and find out. This is what's going to happen. And it's why I truly believe that if the Democrats, me as a Democrat, I've been a lifelong Democrat, if we don't seize on these, and again, use it in 3-word bumper stickers so that we can get to that silent majority that ended up shifting from the Biden win in 2020 to a Trump win in 2024. Maybe it's partially my fault also. Maybe I don't speak enough in bumper stickers and I get too much into the weeds. I have been yelling from the rooftops. I have written 2 New York Times bestsellers, number 1 and number 6. The second one, Revenge, how Donald Trump weaponized the United States Department of Justice against his critics. What is the book about? The book screams, what will happen if Donald, who decides he wants to be an authoritarian, ends up violating your First Amendment constitutional right of free speech as they did to mine. And
it's
not
happening
because
right
Michael
now.
Cohen is, amen. Not because Michael Cohen says so, because federal court judge Alvin K. Hellerstein said so, that what he found was retaliatory by Bill Barr, designed within which to curtail my First Amendment freedom of speech constitutional right, not to allow me to publish a book and not allow me to speak to the media about it because the president did not want it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We are seeing this right now. We are seeing this with Trump making the same exact Putin-esque type of actions where he has stated that the Department of Education will cancel $400 million in funding, and I'm just going to use one school as an example, to Columbia University based upon a single protest. Now, I just had a massive fight with a friend of mine, highly educated Ivy League lawyer, right, who is so pro-Israel, like too many of these fucking idiots that live here on the Upper East Side, that they don't see the bigger picture. This is not about anti-Semitism. This is not about Israel versus Hamas. This is about our First Amendment constitutional right. Because the second you lose number one, number two follows, number 3, 4, 5, the way to the end. Do you think this sets a dangerous precedent for federal intervention in higher education and in other areas?
Oh my God, yes. The chilling effect that this is going to have. We've already seen the chilling effect with the media, right? At the Seneca Project, we actually have merch where we have a shirt that says, "Will not obey in advance," because that's rule number 1 in Timothy Snyder's book on tyranny, of what to do, what you should not do when you are up against authoritarian regimes. Do not obey in advance, because they will, once they know what you're willing to accept, they'll push it until you have absolutely no way to fight back against them. So, we saw this happen because the mainstream legacy media companies that are now owned by these big conglomerates, right? They have CBS. They've got a merger that they want. So what? Well, this lawsuit with 60 Minutes, maybe we need to settle that. You look at what CNN is doing, rewarding that dipshit Scott Jennings, who's out there as the biggest propaganda bullshitter for Trump on the network. He's getting a pay raise. ABC settling that $15 million, which they would never have been a valid court case. They could have fought that if Trump hadn't won. But they're all scared to death of Donald Trump coming in and shutting them down or doing whatever, or using the power of government to destroy them. I've got news for you. When you obey like that and you give it to him, he's going to do it to you anyway. You're never going to earn brownie points with these people. I don't know what it's going to take for them to understand that. So now it's not only, so it started with the media relatively early on in this. Once Trump got reelected, you started to see them all bending the knee. That's why it's important to support independent media outlets like this one, like ours, like people that have voices and platforms that are getting the truth out there, because we can't rely on the big corporate media anymore. I mean, people can say, well, we never could before, but at least there were, there was the reliable sources here, but now almost everyone is compromised at that level to some degree because they're scared to death of retaliation. And Trump knew this, which is why he went for it first. It's authoritarian playbook 101. Hitler did it, Mussolini did it, Stalin did it. Russia does it. I mean, this is what they do. The other thing now we're going to academia. This is craziness. Whether it's the research grants that have gotten decimated now from a lot of universities that rely on those things, from like the NIH or the CDC. University of Alabama is an example, one of the largest employers of all of Alabama. Well, they're getting decimated because they've cut off the research grants, and they've cut off the grants that employ people down there at the University of Alabama. Last time I checked, they overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump. So that's another example. And it's not just the Columbia universities of the world where Trump is clearly retaliating against them because of the pro-Palestinian protests that, listen, some of them were out of control. There was a lot of anti-Semitism going on there. I did not agree with it. Yeah, I mean, I didn't agree with that. I thought it was insane. And the way that a lot of places handled it was not great. It also hurt Democrats in the election. But for you to punish it, it's still free speech. Just like the leader of that they're claiming was a pro-Hamas guy. They like disappeared him. This is like in the news today. ISIS detained him and they don't know where he is. Well, I mean, are we sure about this? Like, where is that going to stop? Are they going to start detaining journalists now like they do in Russia? I mean, we're not far away from that. We're not that far away. This is how it starts. So
what scared me, Tara, when your car breaks down, you take it to a mechanic with no hesitation. You need it, and it's not something most guys can fix themselves. I know I can't. And men should think the exact same way about ED. But the reality is, you might be hesitant to seek help. Thankfully, through HIMSS, you can get access to personalized ED treatment without stepping outside the door. HIMSS is changing men's health care by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your own couch. HIMSS provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. You hear that? 95% cheaper. And the process, it's 100% online, so that there's no need for uncomfortable doctor visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option for you. And if prescribed, your medication ships directly to you for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. And with hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, HIMSS can help you find the ED option that works best for you. So start your free online visit today at hims.com/Cohen. That's HIMS.com/Cohen for your personalized ED treatment options. Again, that's hims.com/Cohen. And the product mentioned are chewable compound products which are not approved by or verified by safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. Yeah, what scared me is his position, Donald Trump's position, that we will strip federal funding from any school, program, university that allows, and the term is illegal protests.
Yes.
Now, the question that I have
is
no
such thing.
Well, let's just say it is an illegal protest. It's without a authorization or a permit or what. I don't know. But my question is, who makes the determination, and what is the determination predicated on? Is it based upon you didn't get a proper permit, or is it that you don't like the topic that's being protested or the people that's being protested? Because, my friends, let me be very clear. Just as soon as he finishes beating down on the Muslim community, the Black community is next, the brown community, the Hispanic community, right?
Women.
Because as we all know, women, what we know, if you read that 22 page manifesto, Project 2025, as we have heard MAGA Mike Johnson say in the past, I want to see the United States return to a white, Christian, nationalist country. Of course, the one question nobody asked him, can you please tell me from what year to what year the United States was a white, Christian, nationalist country?
Right.
And what do we do with all, for example, the Jews? What do we do with all the Muslims, all the Hindus, all the Buddhists? What do we do with the Scientologists? What do we do with any other religion that doesn't fall into that? Are we going to have going back to the Inquisition, where either you convert or you die? What's going on here?
Listen, this has also been a huge undercurrent between the Christian nationalist extremism, which for us at Seneca Project, we put out when we first launched last summer, we put out a couple of very poignant videos with actual clips of what these Christian nationalist pastors think about women, what they plan to do, how they want to get rid of the 19th Amendment, women's right to vote, how they think that women should not, that they should be subservient to their husbands, they shouldn't work, they shouldn't have access to their bank accounts. Like, they don't think that, Charlie Kirk saying women who take, birth control pills are unattractive. All of these horrible things about women, that's just on women. And as we know that women are considered enemies of the state in authoritarianism. Women, our friend Ruth Ben-Ghiat, who's also on our advisory board, the historian, wrote the book Strong Men. She has a whole chapter about this, about how women having freedom and agency gets in the way of authoritarianism, because you can't have a thriving democracy if women don't have equal rights. So there is this undercurrent of all of this going on is part of this bigger grand scheme that these Christian nationalists want to take us back to, where only white straight men, Christian men, are in charge. Then you couple that with the whole tech bro, like tech feudalism crap that's going on here with the Curtis Yarvins of this whole movement, who's this political philosopher who basically thinks that our states should be abolished, that the American people should get over their quote dictator phobia, that people who aren't of use should be turned into biodiesel and used for fuel purposes in their techno states. This guy, Curtis Yarvin, is the political guru of Peter Thiel, who is also the puppet master for a lot of things concerning J.D. Vance, our vice president. And all of these a lot of these tech bro oligarch guys follow this kind of sick political philosophy that wants to fundamentally dismantle our democracy, destroy it, and turn it into these little network states where tech CEOs run everything and the rest of us are just slaves to them. This is all happening in real time. And Donald Trump is a useful idiot here. He doesn't even have to know what's going on here with that.
I don't see it that way though, Tara.
Well, no, he sees it. Well, my opinion here is that Donald Trump is. Yeah, well, that Donald Trump is.
He is far from a useful idiot, right? While
he's a useful idiot on a lot of things. He's a useful idiot on a lot of things. I don't think that he has a political philosophy that's on the same level of those guys. He sees what he sees for himself and how he can benefit. I don't even think he realizes the manipulation that these guys have for a much larger plan. He's a pawn in that plan. He's got his own motivations. He's a useful idiot for Putin and on the world stage for sure in a lot of ways. But again, it all comes back in his mind. How does it benefit him? That's where it's a useful idiot, because he doesn't, you're telling me, Michael, that he actually is sitting around talking to political philosophers about network states and techno-feudalism and this whole, no,
he's not. But what he knows how to be devious enough to pull down $6.5 billion, and that's only what we know since becoming president. Now, yes. Elon Musk has pulled down $240 billion since Trump became president-elect. But far from it. Trump is not a useful idiot. He doesn't give a shit. He has no policy. He has no belief system whatsoever other than what can he do to make a buck. So with that,
he's a useful idiot to these guys. I mean, I think we're quibbling over language, but to these guys, these are kind of, these are the oligarchs that rule the oligarchs. These guys are all useful idiots to them. They're pawns. And we're all wrapped up in this now, and people need to pay attention to, Donald Trump and the whole crypto obsession and, trying to start a sovereign wealth fund and selling off our national lands to God knows who, Saudi Arabia or whoever, to pay for a sovereign wealth fund. Like, these are such un-American things that
if he creates a sovereign wealth fund, Tara, let me be very clear. He's going to want to own a piece of it, the same way that the prime minister of Qatar owns a large percentage of the Qatar.
That's why those things don't work in a country that's a democracy. It's a slush fund for corrupt governments. I mean, what are we doing here?
So look, Tara, the hour goes by quick. I have one last question for you, because again, there's so much misinformation and disinformation and malinformation hitting it. GOP and Trump make these claims that he has brought in over $2 trillion in manufacturing investment to the United States. Okay? Let me be very clear. The Bureau of Economic Analysis reported that claims or investment of less than 200 billion has been made so far for these capital expenditures. Now, forgetting about the fact that you cannot build a manufacturing facility for automobiles or really for anything, including pharma, in the 2 years or the 1 year or the overnight 24 hours that he says. My question to you, how do you explain the discrepancy and the fact that Americans, and I don't care if you have an advanced degree in economics, I don't care if you're a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, or you're somebody that just took a GD, a GDE exam, a GED, right? I don't care, right? As far as I'm concerned, a fact is a fact. What's the discrepancy all about?
Well, in Trump's America, a fact is not a fact. And when, it's alternative facts, remember? That this is all part of the successful propaganda operation that I mentioned earlier in repeating things over and over again and having an ecosystem that the right wing has built over decades to disseminate information, to indoctrinate people over and over again that that don't pay attention, right? Trump said he loves the poorly educated. Yeah, because when you're not informed with the facts and you're not a critical thinker, you're going to take what people tell you because you're like, oh, well, that makes sense to me. Okay, well, I'm going to believe that because he built this cult of personality, which is just, I think a lot of people underestimated that connection. And when you have enablers around you that are now collaborators who are all in on it, that are willing to sing from the same hymnal over and over again, repetition creates reality. So facts don't matter. How many of us are literally arguing with people who we thought were good people in our own family, that the sun rises in the west and sets in the east? And you're like, no, it doesn't. And they're like, yes, it does. And you're the asshole for telling me that I'm wrong because Trump and the scientists have now told me we need to question this. The sun actually does not rise in the east. And you're going, what? It's the world turned upside down. But this is what happens when you do not have a counterfactual opposition pushing back and going, no, and you know better. No, it doesn't. And this is the problem. There has to be a unified opposition and there has to be information dissemination that counters this. And it's got to start now. The urgency of which should have started 10 years ago, but you cannot waste any more time. And I don't know what it's going to take for Democrats and everybody else that's trying to do this like us. We're trying, but it's going to require more coordination, more investment, and more commitment because the most committed side wins. And we do not have time to fuck around anymore. We cannot. No more cowering in the corner. No more crying over the last election. No more like, woe is me. No more pointing fingers anymore. There needs to be a singular focus to push back against this and fight like hell, or else we are not going to have elections moving forward come 2026. We have to remain vigilant. We have to. It's going to take us. Nobody's going to save us but us.
Seneca Project. Tara Setmayer, thank you very much, my love. Great seeing you. Always appreciate hearing you and always appreciate your voice.
Thank you, my friend.
I'll see you soon.